What's going on, everybody? This is Jansen Roberts with Loop Community, and we're going to get started here in a few minutes with this very last session of our series in this webinar on creating tracks with Ableton Live. So we're going to get started in just a minute, but before we do, as you're coming in, why don't you guys just maybe type in where you're from and what it is that you do, if you're in a band, if you're a worship leader, if you work at a church and you're on the production team or creative arts team in some way, fashion, or form, or if you're just a musician and this is just a hobby for you and you want to learn how to create tracks for performance, for rehearsal, for sale, and we'll get started here in just a minute. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome. Again, my name is Jansen Roberts. I am a trainer here at Loop Community, and just been going through this series of webinars over the last 4 weeks on creating tracks in Ableton Live. And this week, we're going to finish up the series here on the drums. So perhaps many of you or some of you either play drums live, or you used to play drums, or you have a drummer on your team that maybe isn't very strong and you need some maybe some practice tracks on how to create them so that he could practice along to them and kind of learn the songs. And so that's kind of what we're going to look at today to finish up this series, and it'll give you a full perspective on each instrument here in a 5-piece band. So the first week we looked at acoustic guitar. The second week we looked at the electric guitar. The third week, we looked at bass guitar the second week. The third week was electric guitar. Last week we did keys, pads, piano, synthesizers, all that kind of stuff. And today we're going to look at the drums. And when you're recording drums, it's kind of hard to get a good feel on how do I find someone if I don't have the equipment myself, if I don't have the space, not only for a drum set, but if I don't have or own a drum set, if I don't have the proper board to record a drum set, if I don't have the proper microphones to record the drum set, how do I do this? Like, what am I supposed to do? Drums is probably the hardest instrument to really record well and do it well, and it takes a lot of time, space, and money to record those. But in 2016, not so much. We have tons of resources that are available to us through software instruments, what we call VSTs, virtual instruments, plugins, all kinds of stuff. And you can literally play the drums on a keyboard, which is crazy. But the software and the technology for this, the actual sounds of the drums and how they sample those and use them in software is getting better every day. And so just like the electric guitar plugin that I showed you with Positive Grid, with bias effects, we looked at a couple of things last week like Omnisphere, Native Instruments, Mainstage, and some of these resources for keys and pads. And there's a couple of tools that we have up our sleeve, and I'm going to share those with you today and kind of show you and take you through some things on how to use these resources and do a great sounding drum set that you can use in any track. So let's jump in and get started. Just a little quick note here that anybody who's watching this webinar today and you say, well, I I bought this, but I really missed the other ones. If you did not, if you bought those and didn't maybe receive the links to watch the previous 4 weeks and you bought the full course, send us an email to support@loopcommunity.com, and we'll be able to check the registration list there and get your email information and send you the links to be able to watch the video recording back of that live webinar that we did for that specific, all the weeks that you purchased. So let's move on here, and you can see that I'm in Ableton, and I'm using Ableton Suite, which gives me the maximum amount of inputs, outputs. It gives me the maximum amount of resources as far as plugins, samples, presets, patches, and I can do the most with this version. You don't have to have it, but it kind of helps when you're doing a lot of heavy recording. And Ableton comes in 3 different tiers. There's Intro, which is $99, Standard, which I think is $4.99, and Suite, which I have, and that's $7.99. It can get up there, but again, when you're doing a lot of this recording and selling stuff or using it, it kind of pays for itself over the course of several years, and you're able to really use a lot of cool things inside this program. Before we start laying in drum tracks, we're going to take some time to review. We've done this every week, and we're going to do it again this week. Anytime you record a song or work on some type of music, you want to have a good basis of a metronome, which we have one that's built into Ableton, and it's really good. But I'm going to show you how you can input your own click or metronome sounds, as well as have Ableton be a band director for you to call out sections of the song. So most churches use an in-ear monitor system to listen back, whether they're using Behringer system or an Aviom system that they can use, that's going to call out what these tracks, chorus, verse, bridge, or build it up, bring it down, swell, whatever the cues are. And we at Loop Community have built a free cue pack that you can get from our website. Just go to loopcommunity.com/store, and it'll be the first thing on the list there, LC Band Cue Pack, and it's free. You can download that. It'll be a zip file to your computer. You can open it up, and in the Finder window or in your browser in Windows, you can drag that right into Ableton Live, and you can save that. So let's see what that looks like now. I already have this saved in Ableton, and from my Finder window, I just drug it into Ableton, and then if you click up here in the browser, you can actually see that I can have it. Let's see, I think I saved it in Ableton Packs. You can put this anywhere in places, and it'll be able to save it, but there is an LC Cues pack. When I dropped the Cues pack right in here, it's let me name this. And so that's what we're going to do today. We have an audio track here, but I'm going to drag and drop this right into the grid here on this new MIDI track. Let's expand this out. And when you drag it, it's going to create this MIDI track and drop in a drum rack here. This is the actual cue pack. All these little squares are actually notes on a keyboard. And the different notes on the keyboard are mapped to these preset sounds.
Instrumental. Outro, verse 2.
So you can hear those being sounded, and you can actually map a key on the keyboard to play these individual sounds. So what that means is that when you create a clip here, you can input and record and kind of preset where these sections are. And so I'm going to, when you're recording this too, as well as we've been working on the song Cornerstone by Hillsong. And so we're going to continue that and use that same song to build this drum track. And I also, in my Finder window, have dropped in, I've added a folder here, and it's Cornerstone. And inside of Cornerstone is all my tracks that I've used or recorded, rather, myself. And so the first week we did the acoustic, second week bass, and I've listed some of these here. And these are the finished product that I've recorded using Ableton. So the first thing we want to do is when we're building a track, we want to have something to record along to. There has to be some type of source audio that you're listening to either record and mimic or copy or whatever. We never ever use the original recording. We always use something that sounds like it, or whatever that we can use to build a track ourselves and make it our own original work. It's something that we can't stress enough, and that's what we want to make sure we do, keep it clean and separate to make sure this is our own work. And so what we're going to do is just drop these in. I'm going to drop both the click and the cues into our set here. I'm going to drop them down here because the second track is a MIDI track. And we'll just get rid of this first one. Cool. So I have my cue pack, and this is the click, and these are the cues. Now again, I'm not doing anything. These are already pre-recorded audio files that I'm just dropping into Ableton into this session here. So the first thing, what we want to do, let's collapse this and rename some of these things, right? So you can right-click to rename, and let's rename this the cues, because we need to learn how to create the cues. This one is the original click, and as I'm typing this, the cursor is still blinking here. You can just hit the tab key and it'll go down to the next track to rename that, and the original cues. And these are my cues. So also, probably if you've watched the other 4 webinars, you've known that I'm pretty crazy about making sure everything is nice and color coded. I like to use green for the tracks that are not mine, and even though I created these are the ones I'm copying so that I can create a cue pack that sounds just like this, looks just like it. And I'm going to use this as the audio that I'm going to use for practice, for uploading, for sale, for rehearsals, for whatever. So, and I'm going to do this one orange. That's what I like to use for mine, red, orange, whatever. And let's jump into it. So, in order to use this correctly, I'm going to expand this a little bit, zoom in here, and I can see how I have my cues. And the problem is here, you can see with these vertical bars here, the beat numbers, that it's not, some of these waves aren't lining up right. They're falling in between. Some of them are falling on. And the reason is Ableton is set to 120 BPMs. Every time you open a new file in Ableton to record something, it always defaults at 120 beats per minute. But this Cornerstone song is not in the timing of 120 beats per minute. And if we turn the metronome, we'll be able to hear that. You can hear that it's
intro
just crazy. So it's not in time. We have to tell Ableton to snap everything to a 72 BPM grid, and we can do that by clicking here and just typing in 72 and hit enter. Now you can see everything snapped to the grid. It's nice and clean, and if we hit the play button, it's all nice and in time,
intro,
which is great. Turn the metronome off. So now what we're going to do is we want to match these cues in our cue track. So we're going to expand this a little bit. And usually if you open up a new file, it's going to be in 4/4. I like to do 1/4. So you just type 1 and hit enter. And if you do 4/4, it's going to give you every beat, but it's going to, your 1 and your 2 is going to say measure. So 1 is measure 1, 2 is measure 2, 3 is measure 3, and each decimal is a beat. So 2, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and so on. You can do it that way, but I like to have it set up where each one of these numbers is its own beat. And by doing that, I'm telling Ableton 1/4 time signature to give me every single beat number. And so what that's going to do is it's going to call the first section off here. Let's listen. 3, 4.
Intro.
There's
2,
our intro section.
3, 4.
Cool. So we want to put an intro section here using our cue pack. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to click on the 5th beat and drag it to the 9th beat. Okay? And then I can right click and then hit insert MIDI clip. The shortcut key command is Shift Command M, or Windows would be Shift Control M. So you click that and it's going to insert the same color MIDI clip here as is color for your track, which is nice. And then you can just double click on this MIDI clip and it's going to bring up this little grid down here. Now it's an important thing to know that this grid is a horizontal layout with a keyboard. You can see the piano notes there. It's the same thing as this, but this is just a drum rack showing the different buttons. Whereas if you double click on the clip itself and not the name of the track, it's going to give you the piano view. Now, when you get to this view, you can see that the headphone icon is grayed out. So we want to be able to preview in this MIDI editor here. So we're going to cut this on. And now we're going to be able to listen to what these notes are.
Full band, swell, downbridge, outro.
Cool. If you need to zoom in, you can see the magnifying glass if I hover over it with my cursor, and then you click it and drag to the right or to the left, based on how your mouse is set up. And it'll zoom in on that so you can see these a little better. So you can scroll down to the bottom, and here's our click accent and our click. So that's cool.
1, 2, 3, 4. Intro.
There's our intro section. The other thing is, because each one of these is a beat, 6, 7, 8, here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of doing the measure thing where I had it before, and I don't want that. So I'm going to right-click anywhere inside of this, the editor pane, and I'm going to go down to 1, 4. I want it to show me quarter notes. So now most of those vertical lines went away in the grid, and I have the dark gray. This is the first beat, second beat, third beat, fourth beat. And I can enter in one note, and it's going to fill up all the first beat. I can do this two ways. One, I can just double click on the note itself.
Intro.
And it's going to insert that MIDI note right there inside that MIDI clip. And then I can keep going, 2, 3, 4. And you can double click again to remove them.
2. Intro.
Another way you can do this, maybe a faster way, is if you go up here to this pencil tool and click the pencil tool, we're ready to go, and you can just click once.
Intro.
And draw these notes in.
2, 3, 4.
Really fast. And then you can click the pencil tool and you're done. And that's it. So now this MIDI clip is going to play the exact same thing as this audio clip. So let's mute the original cues by turning off the channel here. And let's see what, and turning off the click as well, and just listen to the cues.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
Cool. So now that's going to match what we have here. Now to quickly do this, I'm going to highlight this by clicking on the clip, and I'm going to hit Command C. I have a Mac. If you have a Windows, it'll be Control C to copy it. And then I'm going to come down here to the next cue section right when it begins. You can see where the cursor is, and I'm going to hit Command V to paste it. Now, I don't know what this section is, so let's turn off the cues MIDI track and turn on the audio track here and see what this section is.
Verse.
Okay,
2.
So it's a verse.
3.
Cool. So the problem is I just copied and pasted an intro section, but this needs to be a verse. So I'm going to double click on the intro. Again, you can use the pencil tool if you want. And I'm going to double click on the verse. And there we go. Now the verse is matching. And the time is going to be fine. We're going to cut this back on, cut this one off, and listen to it.
Verse.
Yep.
2.
Sounds great. Now, a quick little note here of setting these up is sometimes instead of audibly hearing these, you can visually see them instead. Save yourself some time. So how to do that? Well, Ableton has this cool feature where it lets you set locators. So I can set these little locators here. And again, if you need help knowing what these are or what these things are called, there's a little info pane here. It might be collapsed like this. If yours Ableton program looks like this, just click on the little thing to expand it down here in the bottom left corner, and then it'll give you this info view. Anything you hover over with your cursor will highlight down here and tell you what it is. So let's go up here, and this key says key map mode switch, and it tells you what it is. So this button, if we click it, turns a bunch of things orange. Anything that's orange can be mapped to a key on your keyboard. So like if I wanted to hit the play button or stop button, I can map this to the key, the letter T, or the number 7 or whatever on my keyboard, and it'll actually toggle this to play it or to stop it or whatever parameter it is. So these set locators here, locators can be set at any point in the arrangement during playback or recording, and that's what we want to do because we're recording some stuff. So I'm going to click to highlight this. It's going to give me a dark black line around it. And I like to use the capital A button to set my locator, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type capital A, and you see it put an A right here on this key to let me know that the key of A is mapped to the set button. And I'm going to go up here and hit this key button again to save it and exit. And I'm also going to turn off this MIDI keyboard. And now when I hit play and hit that capital A button, I can drop what's called a section locator. And I can actually rename these by right-clicking and hit rename, and then I can type in verse 1 and drag it back to where the verse actually begins on beat 33. So,
verse 2, 3, 4.
And verse. Cool, right? So I can set these up to visually see them, you know, and I can put these up anywhere and have them set up, and that would be really great. So we're going to move past this. Just for sake of time, you can kind of rename these, and you can do as many as you want. Doesn't really matter. And just kind of set these up for the whole song so that you're not having to listen to them. You can just see them and drop the names, or you can change the MIDI clip by looking at what section is next. Okay, the verse is next, do another verse. The chorus is next, change it to chorus, and I don't have to keep listening to each one of these little spikes in the audio wave to tell me what they are. Hopefully that makes sense. We've kind of covered that every week. And I'm going to delete the cues because we're going to use these cue sections for sake of time. They're already recorded, so let's use those. So let's click on this and delete the cues, and then we will use the original cues and the original click. Cut them back on. So let's get into drums, right? So just like the keys, the piano, the pads, the synthesizer, we're going to use our keyboard to record the actual drum set. It's pretty cool. And I'm going to show you two different things, actually three different things that I use in recording drums. And some of these are really okay, and some of them are amazing. And so let's bring in the actual other tracks of Cornerstone so we can kind of get a context. We're going to bring in the acoustic guitar. Let this scroll back over. Here we go. One. There's the acoustic. I'm also going to get rid of these. Let's bring in the bass. Maybe like the electric guitar. 1 and 3. And then keys, because we did the keys last week. And then the piano. Let's collapse some of these so we can actually have some more screen real estate. Cool. And again, all these are originally recorded, so they're quote-unquote not mine, even though I made them. But for example, I'm showing you if you drug something and it wasn't yours and you wanted to kind of create a sound-alike or something that sounded close and have some context of where the verses are and so on and so forth, make sure that you color code these to where you know that they're you know, not yours, and you know how to separate what is yours from what is not yours. Ooh, that's not the same green color. All right, cool. Let's rename these quickly as well. So I can put acoustic guitar. This will be bass. Let's put like EG1, EG2, keys 1, piano, and then we're ready to go. So let's listen back and see what this sounds like.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
So those are the ones that we recorded from the original 4 weeks. Sounds pretty cool. And you can solo them. Cool. So let's go ahead and stop that and turn these tracks back on. So now we're going to add the drums. And so again, I've pre-recorded the drums, and so we need to drag these in just like we have in the other weeks to give us to give ourselves some context of what we're going to be recording alongside. And I'm going to also make this green, and rename it to drums. So there we go. And let's see what the drums sound like. Now we're going to put the whole thing together see what it sounds like from the beginning.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Cool. And even if I got rid of the keys, let's delete the keys. These are 2 electric guitars, 1 bass, 1 acoustic, a piano, and drums. So it's basically a 5-band or 6-piece band, which is what we were looking at creating. And the sound is really good. You can solo these out as well. Solo the drums out. Sounds pretty real. Let's go to the chorus. There we go. Cool. All right. Believe it or not, that is not a real drum set. It's all software based. Sounds pretty amazing. And that's not from anything that I've done. It's all the software. And so kudos to those guys that are creating all this and getting resources out. So let's go ahead and create the drums. So we're going to drop in a new MIDI track. Here you can just right click and hit insert MIDI track. And the way I like to make drums, and I'm going to show you how to do this, is you can do it one of 2 ways. A, you can record the entire drum set in 1 track. I highly do not recommend this because unless you're like a fantastic keys player and can like do multiple things, like if you're just born natural piano player and you have rhythm and you can do that, kudos to you. But I'm not a drummer. I'm not a keys player. I'm a guitar player, so this takes a little bit of time for me. Drums takes a while. So what I'd recommend doing is first, we're going to work on 1 piece of the drum set. So this first one we're going to work on is the kick. Okay? And I'm going to turn this gray, and I'll tell you why. I'm also going to insert a new audio track. And we're going to rename this drums. Maybe this is like original drums. And this is my drum set. And we're going to put the drums here and the kick here. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a drum track, the actual audio of drums, but I'm going to record 1 instrument or 1 piece of the drum set at a time and tie this in to the drums. That's the other way. Option B is to do it 1 at a time. That's what I recommend if your strength is not in drums. Even if it is, you can really isolate the drums and kind of have each drum be its own mic, if you will. Like when you mic a drum set and you have it in worship, you have a mic on the kick, you have a mic on the cymbals, you have a mic on the snare and on the toms, and the guy on the board is mixing every single mic so that he gets a good drum mix. And that's what we want to do instead of putting everything inside of 1 drum track, right? So the first thing you want to do is in Ableton you have different samples, and what we want to do is click on the drums, and the first thing we see is a drum rack, and so we're going to click on that and drag it right into the MIDI track there and drop it, and it's going to give us an empty drum rack. We've seen this before because it's the same thing that was used with the cues. We had outro, intro, verse, chorus. We're going to use this a little differently because each one of these notes, these MIDI notes, we're going to assign a sound to this MIDI note and use them to play the drums. So I have a M Audio keyboard, a USB keyboard, like a piano, and I have it here on my desk. And it has 49 keys. I think it's called an Oxygen 49 keyboard. You can Google that, M Audio Oxygen 49. And it's just 49 keys. It has some dials on it. And you have 8 drum pads at the top right that you can actually hit those pads like you would a drum set, and it will make the sound. And they're velocity based, meaning if I press them soft, it will give me a soft sound. The harder or faster that I press them, it'll give me a hard sound or a louder sound. It's volume based on how quickly or slowly you press that switch. So that's pretty cool. And the actual keys on the keyboard are the same way. So if you have a keyboard like that, make sure it's one that's velocity sensitive, so that when you're recording MIDI, it can control how hard or soft the note's being played, or how loud or soft the note's being played. So for my kick, I have a drum rack here, and I need to get a kick sound. Well, Ableton has a few of these. So if you go to drum hits and expand it, you can see a number of different types of drum hits. And there's one called kick, so let's expand that. And then look at all these kicks. Now, I have a lot because I have Ableton Suite. If you have intro, you may not have as many. And I've also purchased, downloaded a couple of extra packs from Ableton.com that have a bunch of these different types of sounds. These are not, all of these really aren't even standard with Suite. You can, if you want, purchase extra packs and download them. Or if you have a certain account with, if you've purchased Suite, they may give you a couple of extra packs to try out, you know, whether it's like brass or strings or drums or whatever. So there's a bunch of these, and if you click on one, it's going to give you a sample here of what it is down here, and you can actually see the audio and hear what it sounds like. So as you click on these, it may give you different sounds, and so we're going to come up here. I think the very first one is like a very basic kick. Where is it at? This A kick Remo. Kind of has some acoustical sound to it, right? So what I'm going to do is I use a certain pad on my keyboard every time for the kick, and I'm going to use it again. It's the bottom right one. And as I press it, you can see here that this lighting up. The A sharp 1 is the actual note that pad is assigned to. And that's natural. I didn't have to do anything. It's just there. You could also use a key on the keyboard. Any one of these keys will work. I'm in the mid-range now. Here's a middle C, which is a C2, and that I can drop this sound right on the key that's being played. But I'm going to use the pad and drop this right into A1, A sharp 1 rather. And it's going to give me a little preview of what the sound is. So when I hit this button or this pad on my keyboard, it's going to give me the actual drum sound. And if I hit it softer, it's going to give it to me soft. The harder I hit that pad on my drum set on the keyboard, it's going to be louder. So that's what velocity really is really cool. You can control the volume to velocity here. Greater means that the harder you hit, it's going to give you more volume. The less, you can actually control the volume here as well. This is negative 12 decibels, but I can raise this to be even louder. I don't want to go too loud because you're going to peak. And so we want to just go back. If you hit delete, when it's in the brackets, it'll bring it back to the original dB level. Cool, so I have a kick here, and we're going to listen to the first, let's listen from the intro to the chorus, okay, and just the drum set. Let's solo that out and have our cues on as well, and our click track.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
And let's turn these cues down a little bit, kind of loud. So what I'm hearing is at every downbeat of each measure, I'm having that little spike, and you can see it here. This little spike is louder than these, and so that's a big boomy kick there at the beginning. So that lets me know at every single downbeat there's a kick there. So let's collapse this drum track. And I have armed, let's solo this one as well. And you can solo different ones by hitting the command and holding the command key or the control key and clicking on these, and it'll do multiple channels. So multiple tracks rather. So let's solo that out. And now that it's armed, one thing we will always want to do with MIDI is we want to overdub, make sure overdub's turned on. And that means if I record something and then mess up and then have to re-record it, I can still keep these notes and it won't record over them and erase them. And also, I want to make sure that if you go up to the Edit menu and go down to Record Quantization, make sure it's on 16th note. Quantization is a feature that Ableton has, like most other DAWs, where it'll actually record things, especially in MIDI. It'll record the MIDI notes in time on the grid to the BPM that you are set to. So that if I mess up and hit the kick drum too late on a beat or too early on a beat, when I finish recording, it'll snap that to the nearest grid where it thinks it is. And it really makes me, who is not always in the best of time, to sound like I'm always in time. And that's a great feature. Most DAWs like Logic, Pro Tools have that just as well as Ableton. So let's go ahead and record this. And every downbeat, let's record the kick. So here we go.
Intro. 2,
And it's going to be pretty
3,
hard here.
4.
You can see the MIDI note. And I'm a little bit behind, actually.
Verse 2.
Cool. I can actually stop early. One of the great things about using MIDI as opposed to audio and recording live drums is that you can actually change all these notes. If I double click on this clip, here is each drum beat, and I can like drag this over or, you know, reposition it, and it's going to sound right there. So that's cool. With audio, you kind of, once it's recorded and captured, you kind of get what you get. So that's what makes us really cool. So let's trim this down, and I can expand this as well. And so now it continues on. So what you could really do as well is zoom in on this and just copy this one beat, and then every place you can just paste it if you wanted to, instead of recording the entire song and running the risk of messing up. It's totally up to you. Or what you can do is just take this whole section, click on the MIDI clip, hit Command C to copy it, and then when you click here and paste it, it's going to paste that again because we have the next section. It's going to save you a lot of time in recording. I see it keeps going, so I'm going to do it again. So that's cool. And again, and maybe once more, I will take this because I see it spike here. So I'm going to take this and copy it and paste it here. And that's all you need. So now what you can do is, if you want these all to be one section, it doesn't really matter if you do or not. You can click this clip and hold the Shift key and click the first clip. And then you can right click all those and highlight them all and then hit consolidate, and it's going to glue all these tracks together into one MIDI clip, which is cool. Now you can see all the notes in that one MIDI clip, and let's see what this sounds like. I'm going to solo out just the click. Cool. It sounds like it's a little bit too hot to me, so I'm going to actually click on the kick drum and turn down the volume just a little bit. And let's play through this again. A little better. You don't want to make sure that it's not too hot. Negative 18 is probably pretty good. So that's one way to do it. And then again, you can, if it's not boomy enough, what I like to do sometimes is add some effects to this. Stay away from delay and stay away from reverb when it comes to the kick. It's such a low frequency that it doesn't need a lot of that extra stuff. And the more stuff you actually put on that, it's actually going to drown out and not cut through the mix and mesh well, which is not what you want. So you can go to audio effects, and I like to go to this EQ8 here and expand EQ8. There's one that's called drums, and then there's one that's called, they have 4 kick equalizers. I like to use number 2 because I feel like it's really well rounded. Just drag and drop that right into the effects chain here. And when you can hit the drums now, it gives you a nice, that boosts the low end a little bit, which is kind of nice. If we turn this up, we can actually hear it a little better. So that kind of, it uses that sub frequency, the subwoofer frequency, to get it where you really want it. And that's kind of cool. Cool, so that's one way. And again, you can come through here and sometimes what I do, I'm really meticulous with drums, so I'm going to copy just this one note. I'm going to come down here, and I see the drum set is here, so I'm going to turn the drum set back on, and let's see what it sounds like. So it's boom, boom, boom. Now instead of every measure, we have it on every beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Kind of got this jungle rhythm going on. So it dropped it there, and then I can just either right click and duplicate or hit Command D, and you can just hold down Command and hit D, 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 as much as you want. Or what you could do is just do it for 4 beats, and then holding the Shift key, select all 4, and then if you duplicate these, it'll duplicate all 4. So you can really save a lot of time instead of recording, and just record it really fast. Boom, 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 boom. And as the drums sounds change, you can kind of listen in. Still sounds like the same thing, every note. So it sounds like it may change here. Da, 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 boom. So, you know, it changes here a little bit. You put those notes in a little bit, and once it changes, you can just take one of the beats and drop it here. So I hear it on every single beat, just about. Every other beat, rather. So I have it here. Da, da, boom. Oh, now this last measure, you really have to listen to this. It kicks in 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. So, and there's a different pattern here. It's all about patterns. Worship music does this. Most other genres of music will follow a pattern, especially if it's rock or country or something. It'll develop a pattern. So there's a verse pattern that the drums will be doing something on. The chorus pattern is a different rhythmic pattern. The bridge section does something else, you know, so you have to figure out what that pattern is, and by using your ear and using visually what is happening, which one of these spikes is the snare, which one of these spikes is the kick, you use your eyes and ears to really figure out and lay down those, copy and paste the kick drums. Okay, that's one way. And these sounds are pretty good, but there's another tool that's out there, and a piece of software. We looked at bias effects from Positive Grid a couple of weeks ago when we were doing the electric guitar, and like Omnisphere last week, Main Stage. Those are great. And for the drums, there's another one that I like to use that's called Easy Drummer. And if you click on this plugins clip right here, I have Easy Drummer, and that's one of the ones that I use. I'm going to show you this in a minute. There is a website out there called I Want That Sound, and this is one of the really good ones. There's others that are great, but this is a good one for drums. Paul Mayberry, I believe, is a guy that really develops a lot of drum sounds for this company, and like really puts a lot of those in there, and a lot of guys use these samples. What it is a site that samples drum sets and drum sounds, both rhythmically as far as software and a live drum set. They mic them in a really nice studio setting, and they do thousands of samples, and they choose the best ones, and they do like velocity versions of those. So they'll have a snare hit, but it'll be a super soft, kind of soft, a little bit harder, medium, and then they'll just like have each different one. They'll sample that to where when you're playing the drums, you have a bunch of different tones with the drum set that actually sounds like you're playing a certain way and a certain speed and a certain velocity level. If you hit the drum head soft or if you hit it hard, it'll give you that feedback. So I have actually included this in my Ableton packs here. I purchased one of these. If you go up and sign up for an account with I Want That Sound, they'll give you one of the month, whatever month it is, they'll give you a free pack of samples. So I have one called That Sound. Again, just like the LCQs, I drug it into my browser and saved it here. So if I expand, I have a bunch of these, and most of these came with the free pack. They give you a lot. And so one that I like to use is this 1985 one. It's pretty cool. Ben Phillips is also pretty cool. 1985 free. You expand that, and it gives you a bunch of different ones. And there's one called Kicks, and there's Boomy Kicks. And there's 5 here that I can listen to preview what they sound like. Cool. Again, you can look at some of these. There's a 70s kit that has different ones, and there's different type. So this is the rooms, a natural, a dry, and a big sound with some reverb on it. But these are great, and I can drag and drop these and put them right here and create different tones of drums. So I may have one drum sound that's like very reverby and big, and the other drum sound that's like kind of dry. And when I put those together, you know, this could be kick 1, and then I'm going to actually duplicate this entire track, the same notes and everything, except on this one, I'm going to call it kick 2. And instead of using that first kick sound that we used, let's solo this one out. Instead of using this one, I'm going to use this one and replace it. So now let's listen into these drum sounds. So here is the original drum sound that we used, the first one. This is the Ableton one that came with Ableton. Kind of cool. Now I'm going to solo this one out.
4,
Cool. Maybe sounds a little more real. I'm going to turn down this one because you can see it's peaking. So you may want to come down with the volume even more. And you might have to actually change the volume of the channel itself down as well. And the plugin is still on there from the that equalizer. If I turned it off, it's still a pretty decent sound. Cool, and I can mix these two. So one is really dry and gives you some nice pop and edge with my kick. One is a little more reverby and gives me, it stays in the mix to kind of wash it out a little bit, which is good. And I want to bring these two levels of kicks down to where I'm getting a decent volume of both, and my master mix is not too high. So that's kind of cool. You can go back here and listen to these again. Maybe bring this one down a little bit. That's a pretty good kick sound, I think. Putting those together, it sounds very real. So I'm going to use that. A third kick, and we're going to talk about Easy Drummer here. So let's collapse these. Maybe let's duplicate the same, or actually just create a new MIDI track. Or you can just duplicate it rather and rename it Kick 3. Let's do that. Solo this one in, and instead of using the same note, I'm going to actually delete these and start again. You could really map it to where the kick is at, but I'm going to show you some cool things. So I'm going to go back to my plugin and go to Easy Drummer and drop Easy Drummer right into this MIDI track. And it's going to bring up the plugin. It's loading the sounds. So this is kind of like very skeuomorphed a little bit. You know, you're not actually playing a drum set, but it has a drum set laid down in front of you to where you're clicking what it is. Here's the kick. Here's the snare. The rim shot. Actually, you gotta click on the rim. Hi-hat. Cymbals. Ride. That's cool, right? So different sounds. You can actually click on these, and it has some different settings. Like you can choose different types of sounds specifically for this head. Change the volume, change the pitch of the drum. So if the snare is too much, I want it to be a little lower, I can change the pitch down. So that's cool. And then actually change the kit. So if I click on kit, I can choose different kit settings, and it'll give me whatever this is, Yamaha drum set or something. So that's kind of cool. So we're going to focus on the kick. And we can kind of put together, this kick sounds pretty good, and it's got the EQ on it, so I'm going to use that as well. And we're just going to go back and record this again. I know that it has the kick on every single measure, so let's start off and record this one, and we'll leave these kicks out of it for now, and put this back in with our cues and our click. Keep ourselves on rhythm. Here we go. Same button here on my controller. My keyboard is controlling that kick sound. Actually, it's a different one. So what we're going to do is
intro, 2, 3, 4.
So to save time, I only recorded the kick twice. Another thing about MIDI is if you double click on the clip, you can actually change the velocity. So if I drag the velocity bar down here, the note's going to get more and more white. And the whiter it gets, the more pinkish it gets. It's also going to give me the number there, the softer it is. The more dark red it gets, the louder and more intense the sound is. So I think that's pretty good. We're going to copy and paste this on every beginning of each beat. So scroll here, and we're going to duplicate this, Command D, and it's going to drop it on every one. Boom, 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 boom. So we're just going to I'm just going to hold down the Command D, and it's going to stop. I could zoom in, drag it in like we did before, ready to rock and roll. This is the same pattern as this here, so I can actually just Command D to move it over. And now we have the same section here for our thing. So like, we messed up. There's kicks in between. What you can do is just highlight just this portion, and there we go. Now, That's why MIDI is so great, because it's just computer data and it's totally manipulative. You can just like manipulate this and save a lot of time with recording, you know, and not have to worry about any of those things. So do this here, bring it across, and I've done this a lot, so you can kind of tell I know what I'm doing a little bit because I do this a little bit. So now we have this setting. Let's listen to it. Sounds like a pretty good
Chorus,
kick drum.
2, 3, 4.
I like this kick drum as opposed to this one. This one kind of sounds weak from Ableton now, right? You could make it sound a little better, and there's different ones you can choose from. This is the That Sound sample, which also sounds very good. And this is the Easy Drummer. So I'll do two things. I'll combine this with I'll combine Easy Drummer with That Sound, and I won't even use Ableton. So I'm going to get rid of this one and use these two. Let's listen to what they sound like together. That is a great sounding kick drum to me, and you can even mix it a little more if you wanted to, but it's good. The volumes could maybe even be brought down, and that's a pretty decent sounding kick drum. Cool. So that's kind of the kick. So that's all we're going to control from there. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to insert a new MIDI track, and we're going to do this one with the snare. Rename, color this one gray, and what we're going to do is, actually this one would be the toms because it's at the beginning. Let's do toms first. Again, we're going to drag an Easy Drummer track in there. In the toms. Cool, right? You can put an equalizer from this audio effect on there if you would like. There's some rack toms here and some floor tom equalizers you could drag and kind of mess around and see if you like the sound of that, if it helps out. You don't have to, but it's totally up to you. And so I'm gonna kind of set that out and get that ready to go. Another thing we can do is when we record this is do the same thing. So we're going to use one track for toms 1, one track for toms 2, but I'm just going to use Easy Drummer because it's nice and simple. And on my keyboard, I have some octave selectors. And I think it's when I go down 3 octaves, I can set those 5 keys to be my toms. So, and I know those are right there. So let's go ahead and see what this first sound is like. Oh yeah, we gotta turn on the old drums, turn off the new. So what I'm hearing in the toms is da 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 da, kind of a jungle rhythm. Da 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 da. Let's listen again. Yeah, cool. So we have the kind of beat, so we can kind of mimic that. Cool, so let's record that much. Here we go. Oops. Let's turn on the metronome. Our click channel. You can use this or the metronome, but let's use the click track and the cues. Cool. And try it again.
Turn around. 2, 3, 4. Verse 2, 3, 4.
This is the good thing about being using a keyboard that has velocity settings. Oop, messed up there. We can fix that because
Tag.
it's gonna
2, 3, 4.
It's going to really respond to how hard or how soft I hit those notes. So we messed up here. Let's go back and fix that. We can see the note. If you zoom in here, you can actually bring, you can just select the note and then just use your cursor keys to bring it down and bring it over. Maybe that's where you want it. You can actually even duplicate these. Same thing. You can duplicate them and drag them over to the right notes and see kind of where that fits. Cool. So I'm going to get rid of the drums and bring in just the toms, and let's see what just the toms sounds like.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Maybe it needs to be brought up a little bit.
Verse
Sounds pretty real. Put the kicks in with it.
4. Verse 2, 3, 4.
Cool, right? So there's my kick, toms. I can do the same thing with the snare and the cymbals. I like to use that sound coupled with Easy Drummer for the snare. And I also like to use just Easy Drummer for the cymbals. And you can kind of do the same thing with the snare. Let's pull Easy Drummer in. I like to go use this sound here for the snare. And what's cool about this is you can really that's a cool crescendo in the drum set that I like to use a lot. Snare. And we're going to do one more, which is the cymbals. And that'll give us a pretty decent drum track here. So first of all, let's focus on the snare. So I know there's no snare here, but we can move ahead to the... Cool, there's a snare a little bit here.
Chorus 2, 3, 4.
There's the snare. So we're gonna put a snare in there. There we go. And let's hear it again.
4.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. So on the fourth beat of the chorus section, it hits the snare. Let's try it. Put it in there.
Chorus 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Interlude 2, 3, 4.
Cool. So that was the drums with the snare in there. That's pretty awesome. Sounds pretty good. You can add another snare just like we did with the kick. Bring in your sample and play the same notes with that and get a kind of a mix of two different snares and merge them together and mix the sound and create a really realistic sounding snare. The last thing that we'll do is the cymbals. So we're going to do the drums, cues, and I'm going to use Easy Drummer for this as well. And I always change this kit to a Yamaha because I like the Yamaha sound a little better. Cool. So I have to go up. I have to go up 2 octaves on my keyboard because I know that where the keyboard layout is with all my cymbals. So cool. Pretty real sounding. If you click the settings button in that plugin, it'll make the window disappear. And let's listen to what the cymbals are doing.
Chorus 2, 3, 4.
There's a crash, crash, crash. Not a lot of hi-hats or rides. Cool. All right, cool. So let's put it on maybe like every 3 beats or something. Let's try it.
Chorus 2, 3, 4. Interlude 2, 3, 4.
Cool, right? So that's done. And again, you can, if there's a lot of cymbals in here, you can double click on the clip and change the velocity to kind of get a good mix if it's too loud or, you know, the cymbals can cut through the mix a good bit. So they may need to be brought down a little bit because they just may be too hot. And once you get this mix, you can always bring the channel setting down too. So here are the cymbals with my drums. I'm going to cut off the original drums and let's see what it sounds like.
Tap.
Here we go. Oh yeah, we got to put the toms back in there. And I can just use the same toms cue here. Cool, so let's see what it's like.
Chorus 2, 3, 4.
These are all my drums that I've created right now on the spot. This channel is turned off and you're hearing just the drums. And what's cool is you have a channel for each drum piece. So there's the overheads, the cymbals, the snare, the toms,
Interlude
and
2,
kicks.
3, 4.
So the cymbals sound like really loud, so we're going to turn those down quite a bit. So let's try it again. Snare's a little hot too. So it's
Interlude
all,
2, 3, 4.
So it's all a kind of a deal of seeing what works for you, you know, and what mixes for you, and getting these MIDI notes in here and using those resources. Again, Easy Drummer, you can look them up, Google them. That I Want That Sound, you can Google that or just Google that sound and it'll take you to their website. If you have Ableton, there's a bunch of drum hits in here. And then what I do is I make sure that I have to get these drum tracks in one drum set. If I don't want to stem all these out, I just want one track that says drums, just like this. What I can do is take this drum set and expand it and then make sure the monitoring is in. Okay, so now my monitoring is in, and this, it becomes a send track, or an in track rather, and these become send tracks. So I'm going to expand all of these drums, and I'm going to come down here to master. Instead of sending them to the master out, I'm going to send them to the drums channel. So you can hear a little bit echo. I'm going to come down here and turn these off, or unsolo them here, and solo the drum channel. And let's see what we have. Actually, here we go. You have to turn in on, so it's monitoring those tracks in. You may get a little feedback when it's weird in the audio. It won't do that when you're recording, but because of the way my mix is set up, it's doing that now. So what's happening here is that all 5 of these drum sounds are coming through the one channel. And now you have one channel that's recording everything. And so when I go to export this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export just the drums channel. So we can go to live and file, I believe it is. Yep, export audio video. And then instead of the master, I'm going to do just the drums, which is this track here, just the drums. Wave, you can do 44.1, and then you could do 16, no dithering, and then export. It's going to bring up a file selector and where you want to put them. And so you could just say this is Cornerstone, 72 BPM, key of C, and this is the drums channel. Hit save. And that's it, guys. It'll export this. It'll export one channel with the drums. Make sure these are on, and they all say track in because all the audio is going to this track and sending it out and exporting that one channel. If you have any questions about this webinar, be sure to email us at support@loopcommunity.com. And we have tons and tons of resources. We want to train you guys. I hope this has been something that's been beneficial to you, that's been something that's going to be reliable for you and very practical. And you can use this software anytime. And again, these plugins don't just work in Ableton. You can use them in Logic. You can use them in Pro Tools. You can even use like GarageBand to set up a couple of these things and then run the plugins in the background. So, I mean, it works really well. It's really cool software. And I would just say thank you guys so much for attending, not only today, but, you know, in the past several weeks that we've had these. If you didn't get the links again to these videos, that we've recorded and did live, and talking about the weeks past, the previous 4 weeks, just send us an email to support@loopcommunity.com. If you've registered for this class and paid for the full price for the full 5 weeks and you didn't get, you haven't seen the other sessions, be sure to just send us an email and we'll get you the links for those. You can watch those videos, get kind of trained, and watch them anytime to see how to do all this track creation from scratch and all the tips, tricks, and tools. If some of you have, we talked about keys a couple weeks ago, or last week rather, and so if some of you have the program from Apple called MainStage, it's a great resource to be able to record keys, piano, pads, all sorts of things. And so we're going to look at that this month. In a few weeks, we're going to create another event where I'm going to be going through and showing you guys how to use that for tracks and for patch creation if you're going to record your pads or record key sounds and stuff. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. We'll be posting it and in our email blasts and in social media as well to sign up for those classes so we can teach you MainStage, another piece of great software. Thank you guys again for chiming in today for this live webinar, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And just keep fine-tuning these skills in Ableton. Keep learning things. Keep asking questions. Keep watching these videos, and really start honing in that craft, because you can take this and now use it in your own churches and for your bands to rehearse these parts and really create some great things, giving you all the tools necessary. And we want you guys to just use that to cultivate your own skill set and be able to use this and go back and take it to your churches and teach other people as well. I'm Jansen Roberts with loopcommunity.com. Thanks for signing in, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Intro 2, 3, 4. Verse 2, 3, 4. Verse 2, 3, 4. Chorus 2, 3, 4. Turnaround 2,